A hero who once faced enemy fire, now humiliated in a restaurant in broad daylight. Just because of his loyal service dog, the companion who saved his life in the war, he was forced out like a criminal. Why are those who sacrificed everything treated as if they were invisible? This is the story of John Harper, a Marine veteran, and Max, the four-legged friend who never abandoned him. From the sting of a public insult to a moment of justice that fell silent over the entire dining room, this tale will make you cry, will make you rage, and in the end, will make you believe in the goodness of humankind. What happened just 1 hour after John was pushed out the door? Let's uncover this unexpected emotional journey, an epic viral story of loyalty, of sacrifice, and of justice finally served. Under the pale morning sun, John Harper slowly set foot on the sidewalk. Each step seemed a contest between his will and the joints worn thin by the years. At 74, his body was no longer as spry as in his 20s, yet his eyes still shone with resolve, like a warrior who refuses to let go of life. Before him stood Max, the German shepherd who had served beside him in the military. His gray-streaked coat bore the silver threads of age. John bent down, ran his fingers over Max's chipped metal service tag, etched with his name and serial number, and gently fastened the leash. His trembling hands, veins raised like rugged trails, bore witness to decades spent charging through the crucible of combat. "Just the two of us now, boy," he whispered, his hoarse voice mingling with the late winter breeze. That soft murmur embodied both his steadfast faith and the deep loneliness he'd felt since Emily, his gentle wife, left him 4 years ago. Max was more than a four-legged companion. During their final deployment in Kandahar, Afghanistan, his finely tuned nose detected an IED buried along a roadside. In that moment, he saved John's entire platoon from catastrophe. From then on, Max was not just a comrade but a guardian angel, an invisible shield against the nightmares of PTSD, the sudden crack of gunfire, the acrid haze of smoke that choked the mountain trails. Every morning, the pair strolled through the park, the steady tap of John's cane against the brick path harmonized with the soft padding of Max's paws. Today, John decided to break their routine. Instead of circling the park, he aimed for Daisy's Diner, a newly opened eatery on Maple Street, whose reputation was already spreading through town. On the way, John noticed an elderly woman struggling with heavy shopping bags piled along the curb. Her stooped frame and laboring gait brought back memories of the hardships he'd seen in remote villages. He hurried over, took her frail hand, and guided her step by step across the street. "Let me help you," he said kindly, his voice still carrying the quiet authority of a drill sergeant. The woman offered a grateful smile, her eyes glinting with relief, then carefully set down her bags on the opposite curb. As they stood safely on the sidewalk, she turned to Max with gentle admiration. "Your dog is so well behaved." She patted his shoulder with a bony hand, as if pouring all her affection into that touch. John straightened and beamed with pride. "Max is my service dog. He's been with me through every up and down." The woman chuckled softly, wished him a good day, and walked away into the morning light. Resuming their journey, John and Max followed the cobblestone lane lined with ancient maples. Each rustling leaf seemed to cradle the dew droplets that still clung to their edges, composing a soothing symphony for two weary travelers. John glanced at the bustling traffic beside him, rickshaws, buses, electric scooters weaving in and out, and silently compared their hurried pace to his own measured strides. Yet Max remained by his side, the perfect partner, ensuring he never walked alone. As they approached the intersection, the pastel vintage sign of Daisy's Diner came into view. Its hand-lettered script read, "Daisies where inspiration and flavor meet." John inhaled deeply. The aroma of freshly ground coffee drifted from the open windows. A small bell chimed as the door swung open, welcoming patrons inside. The interior was warm and inviting. Black and white photos of Americana's golden age, classic cars, jukeboxes, neon lights adorned the walls in every corner. John entered slowly, his gaze on the young waitress who greeted him with a friendly smile. She showed no surprise at seeing Max. Clearly they welcomed service animals here. "Hello, sir. Please have a seat," she said, guiding him to a quiet nook beside a large window. Max was offered a soft mat under the table, comfortable, yet unobtrusive to other diners. Morning light filtered through the glass, casting a gentle sheen on Max's fur. For a moment, even the dog seemed to bask in the peaceful glow. John set his cane aside and placed the menu before him. His clouded vision still scanned the offerings: classic club sandwich, buttery mashed potatoes, and a strong cup of coffee. Life's simple pleasures often lie in humble meals. Today's lunch held extra meaning, for here, at a new diner, he shared a table with Max, his steadfast companion through bombs and bullets. John allowed himself to leave all troubles outside these walls. Only the soft click of Max's paws as he paced beneath the table, then settled quietly at his feet, filled the space. Moments passed as John closed his eyes, savoring the hush of an early afternoon, the gentle hum of strangers' whispers, the clink of silverware, the scent of melting butter on hot bread, all blended into the peaceful symphony he longed for. Perhaps, amidst the rush of the world beyond these windows, this was the moment a weary soldier reclaimed tranquility. With his loyal service dog by his side, John Harper was reminded that friendship and sacrifice never fade, no matter how harsh the world may be. And for him, nothing felt warmer than this: the steady beat of his aged heart, matching the calm rhythm of Max's breath, opening a new chapter for tomorrow. The warm, golden glow of Daisy's diner wrapped softly around every table and chair. It created an intimate atmosphere, like a touch of nostalgia in the heart of town. The bright red vinyl booths, the tables with worn wooden edges, and the old jukebox in the corner playing a gentle melody painted a scene straight from a classic film. The glass-paneled wooden door creaked as John Harper pushed it open. Beside him strode Max, the German shepherd who'd faced the explosions of Afghanistan, into the restaurant. John carried no anxiety or hesitation. He simply sought a moment of peace. Max, regal in his salt and pepper coat, followed faithfully, as if to reassure him, "Whatever happens, we face it together." The young waitress greeted them with a friendly smile. Her soft southern lilt lent sweetness to her words. "Good morning, sir. Where would you like to sit?" Her eyes flicked respectfully from John's simple clothes to the dog lying quietly beneath the table. There was no surprise in her gaze, only courtesy. John nodded once. His voice was warm and steady. "Somewhere quiet, please. Max will stay under the table." She inclined her head and pointed toward a booth by the window, where daylight streamed onto the wooden tabletop. Max settled down, his long legs folding neatly beneath him. Like a small hearth, he seemed to warm the old soldier beside him. John bent to straighten Max's collar. His hands trembled yet remained firm, his eyes following every movement of his companion. The small engraved tag bore Max's service number. It stood as proof of a battlefield survival journey in distant lands. For a moment, all the memories flooded back. The thunder of artillery, the swirl of dust through the scrub, the chill that ran down his spine with every perilous step. Yet even when staring death in the face, John had never trembled. Now, beneath the diner's gentle lights, he felt oddly out of place, as if he'd stepped onto an alien planet. A young server named Ethan appeared briskly with John's order: a hearty cheeseburger, seasoned ground beef, melting cheese, crisp pickles, and fresh lettuce, paired with a steaming cup of black coffee. The rich aroma of freshly roasted beans mingled with the scent of sizzling meat in the air. John lifted the cup, sipped slowly, letting the bittersweet flavor fill his senses. He closed his eyes to savor the unhurried rhythm, the whisper of nearby diners, the clink of silverware, the satisfying crack of a warm bun under his teeth. For the first time in months, his mind found stillness. But that tranquility did not last. Across the room, Susan Bennett, the manager, her expression proud, noticed John and Max. She approached with deliberate steps. Her heels tapped the wooden floor in measured beats, drowning out the doorbell's chime and the jukebox tune. All eyes shifted toward her, then toward John. She stopped beside their booth, standing tall, yet her eyes were anything but gentle. They were cold as a blade. Clearing her throat, she spoke with precise authority. "Sir, pets are not allowed in here." Instantly, silence fell over the diner. Even the jukebox stuttered to a halt. John froze mid-bite, his eyes wide at this unexpected decree. He opened his mouth, striving for calm. "Max is not a pet. He's a service dog, certified under the Americans with Disabilities Act." He slowly drew his wallet, produced the certification card and related papers, and held them out to Susan. But Susan refused to look. She reached forward and yanked Max's leash, prompting a low whine from the dog as he pressed close to John's leg. "I don't care about your papers," she snapped, her voice rising. "This is a restaurant, not a kennel. You and your animal must leave, now." Her words hit the room like a boulder dropped into a still pond. Ripples of outrage spread through the diners. Murmurs broke out among the guests. Some couples ceased their smiles. Their curiosity shifted to contempt. A few picked up menus to feign interest, their hands trembling as they hid judgment. What is this about? All this fuss over a dog. Old man thinks he's special. The whispers raced like wildfire, dragging John and Max into a storm of injustice. He sat motionless, his shoulders shook, and blood rushed to his cheeks. Then other eyes emerged. Ethan, the same server who'd brought his meal, stepped forward from the corner. Sadness and anger shone in his gaze, the weight of witnessing unfairness day after day. He lifted his chin, his voice rang clear and firm. "Stop right there!" A new energy filled the diner. Each word echoed against the walls. "Mr. Harper is a veteran. Max saved many of my fellow soldiers in Afghanistan." Susan seized on the accusation. Her lips trembled as she began, "You..." But Ethan would not be silenced. "I will not stand by while you treat Mr. Harper this way. You have no right to kick him and his service dog out." The crowd's mood shifted in an instant. Many diners rose quietly, faces determined or at least nodding in solidarity. A middle-aged man spoke up. "I was a soldier, too. We owe him our gratitude." A tearful woman added, "My son is in the military. I can't accept how you're behaving." Warmth spread through the room, banishing the earlier chill. Susan faltered, her eyes darted around, and at last she fell silent. John met Ethan's gaze. His own eyes shone with gratitude. Max nuzzled John's leg, offering comfort after the moment's terror. John rose slowly, bowing his head to thank the patrons with a gentle gesture full of meaning. The soft afternoon light slanted through the window, casting a golden beam across his face. It felt like justice delivered at last. Under the warm golden glow of Daisy's diner, the Midwestern classic decor seemed to freeze in time. The jukebox's music fell silent, giving way to the hushed whispers drifting from every table. John Harper sat on the red vinyl bench, shoulders slumped. His gaze wavered under the weight of countless eyes fixed on him and Max, the German shepherd who once fought at his side. Curiosity, admiration, and contempt mingled in those stares. Each glance made the air feel tighter than ever. John fought to keep hold of the leash. His trembling hand gripped the worn brown leather as if it were an anchor. Every small movement Max made tugged at the veteran's heart. The dog crouched close, glossy eyes offering silent comfort. This was supposed to be an ordinary lunch. Instead, it had become a stage for callous judgment. John found himself at once furious and fearful. From a nearby table, a young couple stifled giggles. They hid behind a menu, eyes shining like they were watching a play. Their laughter was the final straw, driving John into shame. He whispered, voice thick with emotion, "Please, don't touch the leash. Max is here only for me." Those few words carried John's entire world, a world where Max was the only friend who truly understood him after years away at war. But Susan Bennett, the icy manager, remained unmoved. Arms crossed, her eyes dagger-sharp as she barked, "Pets are to leave, or you both must go immediately." Each word cut into John's wounded pride like a blade. His chest tightened, breaths coming quick as panic rose from the long nights haunted by gunfire in Afghanistan. John slowly folded the napkin atop the table. His shaking hand smoothed its creases, gathering what courage he had left. He bowed his head to Max, eyes glistening with worry, and whispered, "Let's go, my friend." The gentle plea was a fragile lifeline amid the storm of injustice. Max looked up, let out a soft whine filled with shared pain. When John rose, each step felt leaden. He dragged his wounded dignity and battered memories toward the door. His shoulders shook as though bearing the weight of both physical and emotional scars. Susan stalked after him, voice raised. "If you don't leave now, I'll call the police." The threat struck at his soul. John felt like a prisoner in the life he once lived freely. Patrons' whispers followed him. Old men demanding special treatment. Isn't that dog still allowed to eat? They won't stop, even to their graves. Those words were icy needles piercing the veteran's already fragile pride. He stood isolated, abandoned by the crowd that once cheered, "Support our troops." No one rose to defend him. The very people who once hung American flags at the airport, slapped "Support our troops" stickers on their cars, now averted their eyes or added their own barbs. John, who faced enemy fire unflinching, now trembled before callous indifference. He clung tightly to Max's leash, as though to shield his friend from careless hands. Outside, the afternoon sun faded. The fading light made the diner's interior feel even more oppressive. John paused at the door. His hand gripped the handle until his knuckles whitened. Max threw himself into his arms, as if to protect his master. That image, an old soldier holding his four-legged comrade, silenced a few diners, though the heavy air remained. Footsteps grew faint. John and Max left Daisy's diner behind, its warm lights and uncaring stares fading in their wake. He lifted his head, drew a deep breath, and tried to steady his breathing. Max stood by his side, eyes shining with reassurance. Though abandoned, they still had each other. That bond was unshakable in a world that often forgets to show gratitude. At the corner of Maple Street, John paused and looked back through the diner's fogged glass. He imagined their return, no longer enveloped by stifling silence, but greeted with applause, thanks, and compassionate eyes. Today, he spoke only to Max, voice low but warm. "Let's find somewhere else, my friend. Somewhere we'll be welcomed." Max wagged his tail in agreement. Together they walked on, their shadows stretching along the sunlit sidewalk, carrying with them a story of loyalty and the sting of being overlooked. Despite all injustice, John Harper remained resolute, for at his side was Max, a friend who would never let go. This is a story sure to touch the heart, a reminder of friendship's value and the respect owed to those who sacrifice. Under the blazing midday sun, John Harper stepped onto the sidewalk in front of Daisy's diner. His chest felt emptily hollow. Under those eyes, he seemed nothing more than a lone silhouette amidst the bustling street. Beams of sunlight slanted through the leaf canopy. Speckles of light danced upon his worn brown jacket. Max, the loyal German shepherd, pressed himself tightly against John's leg, an invisible shield against the storm of anguish rising within his soul. Each labored breath John drew seemed to dissolve into the air, giving way to memories of the ruthless spectacle inside the diner. Through the glass door, he saw Susan Bennett smiling at new customers. Everything appeared normal again, as if the savage expulsion had never occurred. Beneath the scorching sun, John's steps dragged slowly over the pavement. He gripped Max's collar, seeking comfort in the warmth of the dog's service coat. Each gentle nudge from Max against his trembling legs whispered, "We still have each other." John dared not glance back at the diner, once a sanctuary in his mind. All hopes for a friendly refuge vanished in an instant, leaving only stark abandonment and crushing disappointment. Suddenly, the diner's door burst open. The small bell chimed loudly, echoing down the street. A young man in a sweat-soaked apron hurried onto the walkway reserved for customers. That was Ethan, the server who'd tried to diffuse the tension inside. He drew a deep breath, rapid and urgent. It carried both worry and resolve. "Sir, please wait a moment," he called out, voice earnest despite the haste. John halted. His weary eyes studied the young man's face. He said nothing, remaining rooted between the blazing sun and passing shadows. Ethan backed off, keeping just enough distance to avoid adding to John's discomfort. Then he cleared his throat. Determination shone on his face. "I'm sorry for what happened back there. It wasn't right." John gave a slight nod but waved him off gently, unwilling to prolong the encounter. He resumed his slow march, each step carrying him further from that fresh wound of the spirit. In the harsh light, their elongated silhouettes stretched across the cracked concrete, a testament to two souls bound by shared pain. But Ethan would not relent. He matched John's pace, stepping alongside him. His voice was firm. "Please, just 1 minute. I recognize you and Max. Afghanistan, 2012, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. You're Sergeant Harper, aren't you?" John paused. A flicker of emotion passed across his face as battlefield echoes surged in his weary mind. He turned to meet Ethan's earnest gaze. "You were a Marine?" he asked softly. Ethan squared his shoulders, his bearing instantly reverting to the disciplined corporal. "Yes, sir. Lance Corporal Ethan Carter, 3rd Battalion, and I will never forget the man who saved my life, and my comrades." John's breath caught. His chest trembled with a rapidly beating heart. In Ethan's eyes, he saw the shadows of fallen brothers, those who'd laid down their lives for freedom and peace. 2 witnesses, a man and his dog, had paid that debt in blood. Silence shattered as Ethan strode past the threshold, flung open the glass door, and raised his voice through the dining room. "Everyone listen! This man is a hero! And that dog saved my entire unit in Afghanistan!" Ethan's proclamation shook the atmosphere. Susan Bennett, caught midway through the dining room, froze in stunned disbelief. Patrons turned back. Their gazes shifted from curiosity and contempt to shock, and then to respect. The earlier whispers vanished, replaced by a rising tide of gratitude and admiration. Strangers at other tables stood and offered John a military salute. Voices rang out with inspired fervor. "Thank you, sir." "We owe you an apology." Each word carried weight, as if to atone for the painful moments just endured. John stepped inside again. Each footfall felt lighter. Max followed close, ears perked in renewed dignity. A sacred hush enveloped Daisy's diner as everyone paused their routines and fixed their eyes upon these honored guests. John no longer felt alone. He felt the community's faith and warmth rekindled. At the front, Susan Bennett approached. Her lips trembled, regret shining in her eyes. She bowed her head to John. "I'm sorry, Sergeant Harper. I was wrong." John nodded gently, his eyes still tired, yet warmed by understanding. He offered no punishment. He merely wished to close the wound of this day and carry on his journey toward peace. In that moment, Daisy's Diner ceased to be just a small eatery on Maple Street. It became a living testament to loyalty, sacrifice, and the power to awaken the human heart. The soft scrape of footsteps across the diner's polished wood floor suddenly halted as Ethan's firm voice rang out, his eyes resolute, his tone charged with conviction. His words did more than fill the small space. They struck at every conscience present. In Helmand Province, Max found an IED. Without him and Sergeant Harper, my fellow Marines and I wouldn't be standing here. The atmosphere instantly grew heavy. Cups paused midway to mouths. Spoons hovered over plates. The hushed murmurs ceased as every gaze fixed on Ethan, on John, on Max. In that moment, the weight of his statement fell upon them all. This was no Hollywood tale. It was a vivid memory of distant battlefields, of real courage and sacrifice. Amid that charged stillness, Susan Bennett, the usually proud manager, turned pale. Her lips trembled, her words stammered. I didn't know." Such a clumsy apology could not touch John's heart, nor soften the mood of the room. Ethan cut her off with cold authority, eyes unyielding. "You never asked. You never gave him a chance to explain." His voice echoed like a warning shot, evoking the thunder of artillery barrages in Afghanistan, where they'd once fought side by side, under the sudden blast of hidden bombs. Then another sound broke the hush. A chair scraped as an elderly patron rose. He bent slightly, his weathered face etched with time and experience. Salt and pepper hair framed eyes that had seen a lifetime. His voice quavered yet rang clear. "I served in Vietnam," he said, slow and resolute. "And we know what it feels like to be forgotten when we come home. You should be ashamed." His words pealed like a bell, jolting everyone back to reality, reminding them that gratitude for sacrifice must never be neglected. Immediately, from another table, a younger woman stood. Her eyes glistened with tears of pride and concern. "My son is serving in Iraq," she said, voice shaky but steady. "I only hope he's treated better than this." No further explanation was needed. Her gaze conveyed the anguish of a mother counting each day until her boy's safe return. One by one, the patrons rose. A man slowly removed his U.S. Marine Corps cap, placing it atop his table in a gesture of respect. Another bowed his head, hand over his heart, the faded "Support Our Troops" patch still visible on his jacket. A middle-aged man with a solemn face nodded in admiration, then offered a crisp salute. The collective advance of those footsteps toward John and Max was quiet, yet powerful, as though to shatter the chill of indifference that had filled the diner. In an instant, Daisy's diner transformed. The giggles and whispered derision fell away, replaced by a reverent silence. Susan Bennett's shoulders slumped as she stepped back. Her confident posture melted into stunned regret. She stood motionless, a living statue of empathy that had so recently been absent. Outside the glass door, John Harper watched through the wide pane. He did not turn back. In his mind, each image remained vivid. Ethan, the small but courageous server, demanding justice for his comrades. The elder veteran bravely defending a fellow soldier. The mother of a deployed son reminding everyone of their duty as citizens. A warmth spread through John's chest, dispelling the ache of loneliness. Yet all he wished now was a place calm enough to breathe deeply, to allow his heart to mend. Max pressed against his leg, offering steadfast comfort. Under the harsh midday sun, the dog's eyes shone with unspoken reassurance. Though the world may falter, there are hearts that remember and honor. John dipped his head to Max's shoulder, inhaling the steady breath of his four-legged comrade. He stroked the warm fur and murmured, "Thank you, Max." Turning his back on the diner's door, John and Max walked slowly down Maple Street, where rows of green maples lined the sidewalk. The gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze whispered tales of bravery and sacrifice. Neither looked back, but John knew that behind them, Daisy's diner had become the stage for a just reckoning, where the voice of conscience triumphed over apathy. His satchel, still slung across his shoulder, swayed with each step. In his heart, the pain of today had been tempered, transformed into a fierce belief. Even when overlooked, there are always souls who cherish and respect. And on Max's neck, the worn leather leash felt lighter. No longer a burden, but the bond linking an old Marine and his service dog, journeying together through storm to find true peace at last. The afternoon sunlight brushed the park's trees with gentle warmth. Long golden streaks danced across the ground where John Harper sat quietly on a weathered wooden bench. Max lay beside him, his head resting on his owner's knee, eyes half closed, yet ears attuned to every rustle on the breeze. After the chaotic lunch at Daisy's diner, John had come here instinctively, the only place where he could breathe without fearing judgmental stares. He thought of little. He no longer had the energy for sorrowful reflections. Since leaving the service, he'd faced countless moments of indifference, of strangers' startled glances when he entered public spaces with Max. Yet never had he felt so wounded as today, driven from a restaurant amid curious and mocking eyes, cut off before he could even speak. Though long accustomed to society's silence, to being forgotten after giving youth to distant battlefields, his heart still bore a smoldering ache of disappointment. Max, sensing his distress, remained steadfastly at his side. A soft breeze stirred, carrying the scent of fresh grass and distant traffic. In that fragile calm, an unfamiliar sound cut through, the heavy roll of tires over gravel. A black SUV stopped just a few paces from the bench. Its door swung open, and 4 young men in crisp uniforms stepped out. Behind them followed an older man, bearing the air of authority, his hair flecked with silver, a colonel. The world seemed to pause. Max lifted his head but stayed silent. John looked up, his gaze measured yet unsurprised. He had learned that the most extraordinary things often arrive when least expected. "Sergeant Harper," the colonel's warm, resonant voice called. At the rank's mention, John's spine instinctively straightened. His shoulders rose in an automatic salute honed by years of discipline. "Yes, sir," he replied curtly. The colonel approached and extended a firm, respectful handshake. "News travels fast in our community," he said, admiration shining in his eyes. "Corporal Carter called his former commander, who then reached out to me. And so, here we are." He paused thoughtfully. "It would be an honor if you'd join us for lunch." No further explanation was needed. Those words conveyed everything: recognition, gratitude, and above all, a restoration of dignity. John rose and nodded gently. As he and Max walked toward the vehicle, the four young soldiers formed a guard of honor around them, escorting them as though into a formal ceremony, rather than back to the very diner that had earlier cast them out. Daisy's diner stood before them unchanged, its glass windows reflecting the afternoon glow, its tables awaiting guests. Yet, when John crossed its threshold this time, everything felt different. All diners, old and young, familiar and new, stood in unison. No cheers, no chatter, just silent respect. Some placed hands over their hearts. Others offered solemn nods, as if saluting something sacred. Behind the counter, Susan Bennett stood frozen, eyes wide, speechless. The arrogance that once marked her features had melted into contrition and astonishment. In that moment, she was no longer the imperious manager but an unwitting witness to a profound lesson in empathy and kindness. Near the entrance, Ethan, the young server who had bravely defended John, stood at attention, hands folded respectfully, eyes never leaving the sergeant. Though he knew he'd be reprimanded, he held himself with the quiet pride of a Marine. As John passed, Ethan bowed his head. "Serving you is my honor, sir," his gaze conveyed. John placed a steady hand on Ethan's shoulder. First time that day his hand felt steady. "Then it is mine, always," he replied. The luncheon was brief, not for lack of company or conversation, but because John knew he needed no more. Recognition, listening ears, and above all, the feeling that at last he was not forgotten. That was enough. When he stepped back outside, the air felt softer. The sun still shone, but no longer with the harsh glare of midday. Under the trees by the entrance stood the elderly woman he'd helped cross the street that morning. In her hands, she held a bouquet of fresh flowers, pale purple and sunlit yellow petals gleaming in the gentle light. She approached and offered them to him. "For your wife," she said softly. "A hero deserves something beautiful to carry home." John accepted the flowers. His eyes glistened, not only with emotion, but with a sense of cleansing peace, a rebirth of spirit. Max remained at his side, tail swaying in quiet contentment, steps steady as ever. And in that soft afternoon glow on the quiet street, the image of an old Marine, a loyal service dog, and a simple bouquet became a living symbol of something far greater, a reminder that justice may arrive late, but when it does, it brings healing, gratitude, and the strength of a united community. Don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe so we can keep sharing these inspiring tales with friends and family across the USA.